Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we really dig into sources, could be articles, studies, notes we've made, and pull out the absolute key insights for you.
Yeah, think of it like getting the core knowledge, those aha moments, without having to wade through everything yourself. We try to make complex stuff make sense.
Exactly. Helping you see why it matters, what you can actually use.
And today, wow, we are getting into something that's, well, pretty much universal experience, but often handled with just so much pain, romantic breakups.
Right. We've been looking closely at excerpts from this really insightful book, Conscious Uncoupling: 5 Steps to Living Happily Even After by
Mhm.
Catherine Woodward Thomas.
And breakups, I mean, they can feel devastating, can't they? So often they turn bitter, bring out the worst in us. The sources definitely don't ignore that pain.
Not at all.
But they ask this really powerful question. Is there maybe a better way, a different way to navigate the end of a big relationship that doesn't just, leave wreckage behind?
That's what really hooked us. The material connects the author's own story with what she learned helping others. And it suggests, well, that the heartbreak doesn't have to be just an ending. It can actually be a catalyst.
Mm-hmm. Like, there are actual tools, different ways of thinking, practical steps you can take.
Yeah. To turn that grief into real growth,
Mm.
to build a future, a good one, even when you feel like everything's falling apart.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack those key ideas, that practical wisdom from the sources.
To help you see how you might handle a relationship ending differently. Maybe heal more fully and create a life that's not just after the pain, but genuinely happily even after.
Okay, let's start where the sources do with the pain itself. Why are breakups just so incredibly hard? What did we find there?
Well, one thing that really stood out was framing it not just as, sadness, but as a real trauma.
Yeah, like a serious injury. The sources call it a rupture of attachment.
That phrase really hits home, doesn't it? A rupture, like something's been torn.
Definitely. And it's not just emotional. They point to brain studies, some out of UCLA, I think, showing that social rejection, like a breakup,
Yeah.
it lights up the exact same parts of the brain as physical pain.
Whoa. Okay. So when people say it physically hurts,
Their brain is literally processing it like a physical blow, like an actual threat. It explains that deep, gut-wrenching ache.
that makes so much sense biologically too, right? The sources talk about that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Experts point out we're wired, fundamentally wired for connection. Our brain's main job, survival. And for ages, survival meant being part of the tribe, having bonds.
Right.
So from the brain's perspective, like Dr. Luis Pozzolino suggests, even a bad connection, a negative bond, can feel safer than the alternative.
Safer than being completely alone. That primal fear.
Exactly. That deep wiring makes letting go so incredibly difficult, even when logically you know the relationship isn't right.
It feels like you're fighting your own instincts sometimes.
You really are. And then you layer on top of that our whole cultural story. The sources mention how this happily ever after idea we chase, it's actually pretty new.
No, so
Came about around, 16th century Venetian fairy tales? Before that, marriage was often more about practical things, land, alliances, survival, not necessarily this intense romantic love and constant happiness ideal.
So we're measuring ourselves against this relatively recent, maybe unrealistic standard. And when a relationship ends, it feels like this huge personal failure against that backdrop.
Precisely. And the thing is, modern reality is different. Researchers like Dr. Helen Fisher show, serial monogamy is common, divorce happens a lot.
Statistically, most of us will go through significant breakups.
Yeah, probably more than one, which means we really need better ways to handle it rather than just devastation being the only scrape.
Well, pretending it won't happen to us.
Right. And another massive thing the sources talk about is the social shame. Oh, the shame. Society often treats breakup like failure, especially if you're the one who got left. It feels disgraceful.
They tell that story about Leslie, right? Whose short marriage ended and she just hid away from everyone because the shame was so intense.
Yeah, it's a really stark example. And the sources make that useful distinction, guilt versus shame. Guilt is, I did something bad. Shame is, I am bad. Fundamentally flawed.
And shame makes you isolate yourself.
Exactly. When you need connection the most, it's terrible.
It's a trap.
It really is. And then there's that other dark side, the pull towards bitterness, maybe even revenge. That old saying, heaven has no rage like love to hatred turned. While thankfully most people don't act destructively, the sources suggest our biology, feeling rejected or betrayed, can definitely fuel the urge to strike back. They mention that extreme Burt Pugat case.
Oh, that's a chilling story. A real worst-case scenario of obsession and revenge.
Right. And the point isn't to dwell on that horror, but to recognize just how intense these feelings can get. Understanding all this biology, the cultural pressure, the shame, the potential for rage, it's not about making excuses.
No, it's about understanding the scale of the challenge.
Exactly. Understanding why it cuts so deep is kind of the first step to maybe handling it with more awareness.
Okay, so acknowledging that immense difficulty,
Yeah.
how do the sources suggest we can approach this differently? This leads into that idea of breakups as an opportunity, which sounds wild when you're in pain.
It really does sound counterintuitive, doesn't it? But yeah, that's a major shift in perspective in the sources, not just loss, but a critical crossroads. They even call it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
For what? Like what kind of opportunity?
For serious growth, for finding wisdom you didn't know you had, emotional depth even, joy, eventually. They frame it as potentially a complete spiritual awakening.
Through heartbreak. Wow.
I know. But the idea is that when life brings you to your knees like a breakup can, it shakes things loose. It forces you to see the falsehoods you've been tolerating.
Falsehoods? Like what?
Like ways you've maybe given your power away or ignored your own gut feelings or settled for less than you deserve in the relationship. This kind of intense pain can, as they put it, violently, mercilessly force you to evolve.
It reminds me of that Leonard Cohen line. They quote about the crack being how the light gets in. The breaking open lets something new happen.
Exactly, finding the light in the cracks. And they even find potential power in the really tough emotions like rage.
Rage. How can rage be useful?
Well, acknowledging it's difficult, Thich Nhat Hanh calls it garbage, right? But the sources point out that rage carries a huge amount of energy if you can learn to channel it consciously.
Instead of letting it destroy things.
Right. It can be like compost, fuel for positive change for growth.
Okay, I can see that. Turning fire into fuel.
And often, the sources say the intensity of that anger isn't just about the breakup itself. It's often a rewounding.
Rewounding, meaning?
Meaning the current pain triggers much older hurts, maybe from childhood. Old feelings of betrayal or abandonment get reactivated. So it feels like this ultimate violation, often by the person you trusted most to keep you safe.
Ah, so it taps into deeper, older pain patterns. That makes sense why it feels so overwhelming.
Yes. But there's a flip side. The sources talk about the healthy aspect of that activated energy. It can fuel this fierce need to stand up for yourself.
How so?
To demand to be valued, heard, respected. To finally set boundaries you couldn't before. They call it a life-affirming cry of a newborn.
Like claiming your space. Saying,
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. It's not just destructive bitterness. It can be the energy that says, I deserve better, and pushes you to protect yourself.
That's a really different way to look at anger.
So for you listening, the question becomes, how can you work with that intense emotional energy, even the rage? Not to lash out, but to, I don't know, stand up taller, to fuel the changes you need.
And doing that consciously, well, that takes real effort. It's not passive. The sources are clear. This isn't about a painless exit. It's more like finding a safe passageway to wholeness. So what are some of those first inner steps they suggest?
Well, first off, just managing the immediate shock, that feeling of being completely overwhelmed. They mention a technique called affect labeling.
Affect labeling. What's that?
It's literally just naming the feeling you're having, saying, okay, I feel grief, or this is panic, or I feel intense anger. Dr. Matthew Lieberman's research showed that just putting a label on the emotion can actually calm down the brain's reaction centers.
Just naming it can take some of its power away. That seems simple but powerful.
It helps you step back a tiny bit, observe it instead of just being drowned by it. The sources even suggest keeping a list of feeling words handy to help you identify them.
That's practical. What else?
Beyond that, sort of step one foundational stuff. Basic self-care and processing, like keeping a journal where you can just dump everything. No filter, rage, sadness, fear, whatever.
Getting it out.
Yeah. Moving your body is huge. Listening to music that helps you feel or release emotion. Surprisingly, doing small acts of kindness for others can actually lift your own spirits. Engaging with art, nature, culture.
Finding healthy outlets for all that emotional intensity.
Exactly. And another really key practice they introduce is cultivating a witness within.
A witness within, like an observer part of yourself.
Kind of. Finding that deeper, wider center inside you that can watch your emotions roll through with compassion, with wisdom, without getting swept away. From that wiser place, you can offer kindness to the part of you that's hurting. Like asking, okay, sweetheart, what do you need right now?
Treating yourself with kindness. That seems essential but hard to do when you're low.
So hard, but crucial. And this inner attention leads directly into step 2 in the sources, taking responsibility.
Ah, okay. This sounds tough.
It is. Shifting from seeing yourself purely as the victim, which you might genuinely feel you are, to also looking honestly at your own role in the relationship dynamics. What part did you play in how things unfolded or ended?
Oof, that takes courage, especially when you feel wronged. It's not about blaming yourself, though, right?
No, definitely not about blame or shame. It's about clear-eyed self-reflection, seeing patterns so you don't just repeat them in the future. They use client examples, Monique and Kate, to show this awakening of conscience.
Right, seeing your own patterns.
And linked to this is a practice called making amends to yourself.
Amends to yourself. How does that work?
It means looking at resentments you hold, not just towards your ex, but towards yourself. Identifying ways you might have abandoned yourself during the relationship.
Like how?
Maybe by always putting their needs first, minimizing your own, overgiving, not speaking up, not setting boundaries. You acknowledge those self-abandonments.
I remember the Kate example, realizing her ex's abandonment felt so bad, partly because it mirrored how she'd abandoned her own needs.
Exactly. It's seeing that connection. So making amends to yourself is about recognizing that pattern and consciously committing to treating yourself better going forward based on self-respect.
Wow, it's deep,
It connects directly to what the sources call the source fracture wound.
which is the old childhood stuff.
Yeah, the idea is that the pain of the breakup doesn't just hurt on its own. It triggers and amplifies those really old, deep wounds and the false beliefs that came from them.
Like, I'm unlovable, or I'll always end up alone, or I'm not good enough.
Exactly those kinds of core wounds. The sources say tapping into that source fracture wound is often the worst part of a breakup because it feels like it validates all those terrible old fears about your fundamental worth.
Like the breakup is proof those negative beliefs were true all along.
Right. So a really vital practice here is to first identify those underlying assumptions that are getting triggered. Then actively challenge them.
How?
From your wise, intelligent, educated adult perspective, the part of you that knows better now, you talk to that younger, hurting part. You tell it firmly, compassionately that the old story, it's simply not true. And you consciously replace the false belief with a truth, like, I am a treasure, or I was not born to be alone.
Deliberately rewriting that inner narrative.
Actively choosing a different story.
Yeah.
And the sources argue this deep self-work isn't just about getting over this breakup. It's absolutely essential for building healthier relationships next time. You develop healthy relational skills and capacities. It starts with learning to truly value and love yourself.
That makes sense. You have to heal your relationship with yourself first.
So, for you listening, maybe just pause and think. What small inner practice feels doable right now? Maybe just naming one feeling today, or journaling for 5 minutes. And can you gently start to notice any old, painful stories this breakup is stirring up? How could your wise adult self offer some truth and kindness to that younger part of you?
Okay, so that's the crucial inner foundation. But breakups also involve the external world, right?
Right.
Especially the relationship with a former partner if you have kids or shared ties. How do the sources suggest navigating that consciously?
Yeah, moving beyond the inner work. First, they warn against getting stuck in the past. Don't turn your life or your home into a shrine to what was lost. They use that example of Ralph.
Right, whose house was like a museum of the old relationship.
Exactly. You have to consciously make space, literally and figuratively, for a new reality. And a key step for doing that consciously with your ex-partner is setting a clear intention for the future of the relationship.
An intention, not to get back together, obviously, but
No, an intention for what the new form of the relationship will be. It needs to be positive, forward-looking, and ideally consider everyone involved.
could you give an example?
The one about Janet Bray Atwood and Chris Atwood was powerful. They decided their intention was to remain best friends and business partners. And they really lived that, even integrating new partners into that friendly dynamic later. That intention acted like their North Star.
Guiding their decisions and interactions. That requires looking ahead, not just reacting to the past hurt.
Absolutely. And another huge piece of moving forward is forgiveness.
Ah, forgiveness. That's always a big one.
And the sources frame it really specifically. It's not about saying what happened was okay, or letting someone off the hook, or even necessarily letting them back into your life in the same way.
So what is it about then?
It's primarily a practice to free yourself, to let go of those toxic emotions, the bitterness, the resentment, that honestly just poison your own happiness and keep you tied to the past.
Like Marianne Williamson says, it's choosing faith and love over the reality of the hurt for your own sake.
Exactly. The sources even suggest a practice where you consciously forgive your former partner, and this is the really hard part for many, consciously ask for their forgiveness, even if just internally. It's about neutralizing that negative charge.
Asking for their forgiveness.
Oh, wow.
Even if you feel like the wronged party, that's radical.
It is radical, but it ties into step 4, making amends, which goes beyond just saying sorry.
How so?
It's about taking wholesome right action to try and restore wholeness to the situation, even as you part ways. It means being willing to really listen and understand the impact your actions had on the other person.
Without getting defensive.
Right.
Without needing them to validate your pain first.
That's the key. Like the Robin and Gary example, she just listened to his hurt, really heard it, without jumping in to defend herself or demand he hear her side right then. It's about cleaning up your side of the relational street.
Taking responsibility for your impact.
Okay. And the sources get very practical here, especially about logistics, particularly with kids. They strongly advise against rushing to court unless it's absolutely unavoidable, like abuse or someone hiding assets.
Why are they so cautious about the legal route?
Because the legal system is inherently adversarial. It's absolute, not contextual, they say. It's designed to divide things and people and often just escalates conflict and causes more long-term damage to relationships, especially co-parenting ones.
So what are the alternatives?
Things like mediation, collaborative divorce, they call these peace-building variations. The goal is to find agreements where everyone can, ideally, win moving forward, preserving resources, and, crucially, the ability to co-parent effectively.
And they make that point about integrity being worth more than money in the long run, right? Like the author paying royalties he didn't legally owe.
Yeah, that really highlights the different values guiding this approach versus a purely adversarial one. And the impact on children is, well, paramount. High conflict between parents is just incredibly damaging for kids. There's research cited Gottman, resolution showing how kids caught in the middle suffer, lose contact with grandparents and cousins because of the fighting.
Kids need stability. They need parents to be the grown-ups.
Absolutely. Not making them choose sides, not making them messengers, not burdening them with adult emotions. The source is stress. Help kids name their feelings. Reassure them constantly it's not their fault, they're still a family, just different, they won't lose a parent, they're loved. Fred Rogers' emphasis on simply listening to kids is mentioned.
And they introduced that term, binuclear families.
Yes, Dr. Ahrens' term. It helps normalize the idea that the family continues, just across 2 homes now. It's a structural shift, not necessarily an ending of family itself.
That reframing seems really helpful for kids. What about the social stuff? Friends, family taking sides.
Yeah, that's tricky. People often feel they have to choose. The sources actually suggest you need to gently train your support system. Ask them to be respectful of your former partner, especially if you share kids.
So you set the tone for how others should treat this situation.
Yes. They even describe actively ostracizing a former partner as a form of violence because it attacks their sense of belonging and just deepens the divides.
Wow. That's a strong perspective. It really pushes against the common us versus them mentality after a split.
It all ties back to that future intention, which leads to the idea of creating Agreements 2.0.
Agreements 2.0, what does that mean?
Recognizing that all relationships operate on agreements, some spoken, many unspoken. As you uncouple, you need to consciously create new, clear agreements for how you'll interact now, letting go of the old assumptions.
Like explicit agreements about communication, finances, parenting schedules.
Exactly. Getting clear on the new rules of engagement. And finally, they suggest using rituals or ceremonies.
Rituals, like what?
Things to consciously mark the transition. Provide closure. Acknowledge the end of one chapter and the start of another. Could be something formal. Could be a quiet shared meal. Could even be a moving party to bless someone's new place.
Creating intentional moments to signify the change.
Right. So for you listening, maybe think about what kind of new relationship realistically do you want or need with your former partner? Even if it's just baseline respectful co-parenting, what clear new agreements would help that? And is there any small ritual, even just writing a letter you don't send, that could help you find closure and consciously step forward?
Okay, that brings us towards the end goal, I suppose. The sources talk about this happily even after life. What does that really look like in practice?
It's really a shift from the fairy tale happily ever after. It acknowledges the reality of the ending, the pain, but focuses on finding genuine happiness, wholeness, and meaning after that. The sources emphasize that going through this consciously is a process of maturing, growing up, really.
Becoming more resilient.
Yes, and it can actually deepen your appreciation for relationships in general, even the difficult ones. You learn so much.
But it seems grounded in consistently choosing certain principles.
Yeah. Exactly. Those core ideas we've touched on. Choosing self-responsibility instead of blame. Choosing forgiveness over revenge. Generosity over fighting about every penny. Choosing faith in the future over fear. Actively looking for positive ways forward. Letting your ethics guide you more than just raw emotion. Valuing what was good in the past relationship while firmly creating a new future.
It sounds like a very integrated approach.
It is, and there's this interesting paradox they point out at the end.
Oh,
While conscious uncoupling offers tools that might make leaving a relationship seem, I don't know, more manageable if you truly need to, the very skills you learn doing it, that self-awareness, taking responsibility, forgiveness, better communication,
yeah.
those skills might actually make you less likely to need to end future relationships. Or they might even give you the tools to repair the one you're in, if that's possible and right.
So it's not just an exit strategy, it's actually building skills for better relating overall.
Exactly. It's about becoming a wiser, more wholehearted person in connection with yourself and with others. It's fundamentally about growth.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, we've seen how breakups hit us hard, biologically and culturally. But these sources offer a powerful alternative path, seeing it as a chance for major transformation.
We looked at that crucial inner work, handling the shock, taking responsibility, healing old wounds, and the practical outer steps, setting future intentions, forgiveness, making amends, navigating kids and social circles with integrity.
It's definitely not about avoiding pain,
hmm
but using that pain, that energy, as fuel. Fuel to become, well, a more conscious, integrated person and build a better life.
A life that's truly happily even after.
So here's a final thought for you to take away, building on all this. Given how common relationship endings are now, imagine if more of us started navigating them this way more consciously, more kindly. What kind of ripple effect could that have on families, on society, maybe even on future generations?
And just for you personally, what's one small step you could take today, inspired by anything we've discussed, towards more conscious completion or healing in any area of your life where something feels unfinished?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.